We're going. Boom.
All right, so this time we're going to introduce ourselves.
Yeah. My name's Johnny,
My name's Isaac.
and this is the Open-Minded Podcast.
Yeah, so we got a bit of feedback from people saying that we
Not introducing ourselves and
didn't describe things.
mm,
We were kind of talking to each other as if it's just you and I.
yeah, and not realizing that there's actually someone listening.
Yeah.
We need to go into a bit more detail, and we also need to sort of keep things moving at a pace. Not try to not staying on the same subject for too long.
Yeah,
sort
so I
of-
think the notes will help with that, and especially help with speech and flowing a bit better.
I'm not saying too many like and ums.
Yeah, no likes and ums. Because that was...
It's so hard though, people. Like, honestly, if you sit in front of a mic for an hour and try not to say, it's just, it's,
I feel like the I feel like the I feel like you're trying to fill the space.
Yeah. because you're just talking and you're just trying to fill a void.
But the gap is better than likes and ums.
Yeah.
Like it just comes out so naturally.
Yeah, it does.
It's really annoying. That's quite funny. Today's what we're talking about is quite interesting. It's along the lines of people are really adaptable. People are stronger than they think. Going through hard times makes you stronger. People can do a lot when they've been encouraged to do it. That going through hardships helps you develop as a person.
Also, we just want to put out to there to like the younger generation and people coming up and just coming up into their 20s. There's a lot of things that you don't know about that are coming.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a lot. We just wish that someone had fucking warned us.
No one sat me down and was just saying,
yeah,
this is about to get real.
But
I think as well, someone could have only said so much to you, and would it have really resonated when you were
this is the problem,
a bit younger?
I talked to my little sister about it and my little brother, and I try to warn them and stuff, but they don't understand. It's like I'm just kind of talking gibberish to them. I think if you over and over again, if you put it towards them, I think it's just the thought of when you get there, oh, okay, this is what he was talking about, instead of what the fuck is going on. You don't really understand it until you get to that place, and then you can take those things that I've said to you and use it to your benefit, because you don't really understand. When I say this is going to happen to you in the future, you just think, oh, okay. And then when you get there, you're like, okay, that's what he was going on about.
As well as not having experienced it and it being kind of new, you're telling something to someone that is going to happen to them, you're going to have to face this type of problem in the future. One, if they've never actually experienced it, it's new and they probably maybe don't appreciate or don't understand how to appreciate it. But as well, as you get older, when you hit 16, your brain changes. When you hit 20, your brain's changing. It's constantly changing. And even if you could appreciate it at the time,
it's almost
you just hit a
impossible.
point where you just understand more. I just hit a point where I just became a lot more aware. Maybe when I was 17, 18, and then again when I was 21, 22.
That is a weird thing. It's obviously you can only see it with hindsight. There's points in your life where you can sense that your brain, there was like a change in your brain, like a cog turned and something clicked, and then again, but you can't really put your finger on what it is. It's almost like your conscious changes.
Yeah, but it opens a door that you can't close as well. Once you reach some point of awareness, it's impossible to turn it off again. You've passed the checkpoint, that's it. So I think we should start with going through hard times making you stronger. And this is this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I think it ties into a lot of other subjects. And this idea of it ties into becoming complacent and being too comfortable, beginning to understand yourself and your own capabilities. What are you good at? What you're not good at? What works for you? There's so many aspects to this. So I think we'll start with that. Generally, we've lived quite comfortable lives. We have a lot of people. Obviously, it's different case by case, but a lot of people haven't had to experience extreme hardship. You know, I'm not saying that people don't in general, like people do, but if you haven't, you don't really know what you're capable of. You haven't been put in difficult situations where you've had to work out what to do. So you don't know how you respond to things until you're met with challenges. You don't understand yourself that well. For me, especially in my experience of that, it you know, facing challenges has made me what I'm like. I now feel a lot more comfortable with facing challenges because I know that if I fucking got here, I can probably like make it the rest of the way.
Yeah. And that sense of knowing that is what people at home should sort of take it as, when I'm going through this now to get to there, and it gets easier.
It gets easier for sure.
It gets easier to manage um that sense of the unknown, and um
It doesn't seem that scary. It seems, if you can embrace it because you're confident in, I can deal with most things. I've built up a repertoire or a skill set or a toolkit, however you look at it, of dealing with things. And I'm now quite confident that I can deal with most situations that present themselves. You can embrace the unknown. And my life is nothing like what I thought it would be like when I was like 15, 16. It's absolutely nothing like it. I don't know why I had this idea that it was meant to be kind of all happy, laughing, and just make money and become successful, and it was going to be really easy. And the things that get in your way are just unbelievable. And
it's
going through challenges as well makes you realize a lot things that you take for granted.
great. I've said this before, but gratitude is just the most beautiful thing to learn when you're going through hard times. Realizing that this is all just to help you, like, turn it all around. Like, the the world isn't trying to um ruin you. It's just trying to mold you and shape you into the person that you're going to become. And you have to be grateful for that. It's like almost flipping it on its head, of the world's against me to the world is working in my favor at all times, even when it feels like it's not. It is, and then being grateful for the fact that it is.
Yeah. I'm just going to double check we're recording. We are still recording. So I think that point of that is teaching you something is kind of good to ask yourself. I've got on my notes, what's this situation meant to teach me? If you can look at it like that, the same way that if you look at, I think it's something from Jordan Peterson where he says to listen to people as if they're going to tell you something that you need to know, because a piece of information can come from anywhere.
And always approach people like have something they know something that you don't know, because every single person who you meet knows something that you don't know. You can learn something from everyone.
So this is kind of ties into the point of people are, one way of putting it is people are adaptable, people are stronger than they may think. But people can do amazing things, whether it's by being consistent at something or being skilled at something, being creative with something. In general, people can amaze themselves with what they're actually capable of doing. And I think that if you've had a really sheltered upbringing, you've been really cocooned in just how you were brought up. You were never, you didn't get any germs because you were always kept indoors. And like when you don't get germs, you don't,
Build
you
the.
don't build like an immune system.
Mm,
And there's probably problems with that analogy, but in general, when you when like you learn how the world works by interacting with it and learning what does and what doesn't work for you.
and fucking up.
Yeah, and fucking up and making mistakes. I I used to be quite kind of scared of making mistakes. I don't know if I had some idea of what people would think if I fucked up or something like that. But realistically, making mistakes is one of the biggest ways you learn, and it's a good thing because it teaches you a lot.
But there is a kind of thing in this culture where mistakes are bad, and it's like, oh, you fucked up, or your parents say, oh, you made a mistake, or whatever. And the reality is that you have to make mistakes, and you need to flip it around in your head that, in just like I said, it's a positive to a negative, negative to a positive, and just think, not be scared of making that mistake, because you know that the more mistakes you make, the better you're going to get.
Mm. But this is it. Going through hard times makes you stronger.
Embracing it.
A lot of what we experience and experience difficulties is often down to our perspective. So when you're younger and you're less experienced, problems can seem far greater than they actually are.
They're heightened, aren't they?
It seems like, oh my god, this is the end of the world.
Mm,
And realistically, it probably
it
isn't.
really isn't.
So, you know, shifting your perspective with things can help a lot, and understanding that, things are temporary. In a sense, everything is temporary.
But one thing that really helped me was listening to someone who really did go through really tough times, and it kind of put everything into perspective for me.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just there's someone who's always got it worse off than you. um, yeah,
Yeah, things are probably not as bad as people make out. But the thing is everyone's journey to them seems like an uphill battle
yeah.
in your own eyes. But you can look at someone and be like, it wasn't that hard, mate, or you haven't actually got it that bad.
But in their mind, they thought that it was like the most fucking tough thing ever.
Yeah. So this is perspective.
It's all about perspective.
But going through it and experiencing that. And I remember a stage where my perspective was that all I actually need is somewhere to sleep and something to eat.
And
And
water to
then,
drink.
yeah, and then
Everything else is a
that's something
bonus.
that I've become grateful for. And this is where perspective can also link into complacency. So there's this idea of hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. You've got this cycle. So, you've got this perspective that at one point when you've got nothing, that a little bit would be everything. And then you get to the point where you've got a lot of things. So food and shelter to me now is just
Nothing.
it's just basic.
Everyday thing.
It's basic because you've got more than that. You've got access to more than that. So then you become, you get lazy, you get fat. You're not on your toes trying to get the next £2 to get something to eat. Or your next £10, whatever it is. You're not trying to get your next banana. And you can become complacent. So I've felt like that recently, where I've been like, all right, cool. I've kind of sorted a lot of things out, and now I'm a bit more organized. And then I thought, actually, I've become a bit complacent. I've become a bit lazy. I'm not as hungry. But then I've kind of redeveloped that, and I've realized in myself that I need to be challenged. I need I enjoy situations where I'm learning. Whether that's conversation, whether that's doing a course in some business, I like to be learning. But I also need to be challenged to learn. And I need to kind of put myself in or set bigger goals, for example, and facing adversity as well is another thing. It's kind of hard to purposefully face adversity, but it's going to happen, no doubt. But those type of situations build your character, you build your skill set, you begin to understand yourself better, and fundamentally, those situations, if you allow them to, will help you, you know, become more confident in yourself, help you to understand yourself more, and all of these things.
100%. I just feel like
Just turn it a little bit. That's right.
sorry, I've lost it now. We could go on to like money will never solve your real problems because you think that I've talked to a lot of people who are going through struggles and they seem to think that if I have this, if I have that, um, then my life's going to change for the better. And then what they don't realize is when they start buying themselves these things, they just end up filling a void in their life, which is um, something that they could have figured out when they didn't have money.
Well, the point is, those things don't fill the void. You just keep on filling and filling.
Yeah.
It will never fill it.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So these things don't solve real problems.
Figure it out now when you don't have money, and then when you do have money, it's so much. You won't
When-
waste it.
When you don't have money, having money would give you something to eat and somewhere to sleep. It doesn't do much more than that. It allows you to be comfortable. And I don't know what else it does than that. If your relationships are based on your access to money, it's baseless. It's based on something which is just nothingness. All it is just a token to trade things. And what's actually important is for your survival is shelter and food and water. So if you've got friends that only talk to you because when you go out, you buy bottles and you splash out and whatever, they're not very substantial relationships. And this isn't, I don't know, there's an element of not really telling people what you've got, because then people would act differently around you.
This is the other thing that once you get like what you were saying earlier about I've become too complacent. I think the thing is fine. I think it's fine when you get to that stage to be a little bit complacent because you're allowed to be. But it's taking that moment every night or every morning to sit down and realize what you have and be grateful for it.
But by being grateful, you won't become too complacent, because you'll really appreciate, this money has allowed me to have nice clothes and somewhere warm and nice food and all of these things that, make your life more comfortable. But if you're not grateful for it, that is like complacency, because you think, oh, it doesn't matter, I can just, you think that you're so good that it's just going to come to you. And realistically, it isn't.
Mm.
But money will definitely not solve your problems. It will solve a lot of problems. But if you have deep rooted problems in how you deal with things, who you are, and like yourself, that's a whole different thing to like grapple with.
I just think for me, it was always I always knew that I wasn't coming into money because I didn't I would have just completely messed it up. I would have fucked it. And the skills that I have now, I feel like I'm capable of that now. I'm capable of handling a lot of money. So things are you just need to think of things as they're not happening now because they're not meant to happen now. And if they did, then I would probably mess it up. And the feeling of messing up after you get money is way worse than not getting it in the first place.
Well, yeah, I think there's another thing to it of if you can become a good steward of a small amount,
Yeah.
you'll be given the big amount, and you need to be able to manage that small amount of money first. Because if you get given a big amount of money and you're not a good steward of it, it will ruin your life.
Mm,
people people ruin their life when they have money. It's
literally.
like a curse to some people having money.
Mm.
It's not a good thing for everyone. People become flamboyant, boisterous.
Ego driven and
It it destroys people.
mm,
This is why when you actually earn it, you don't act the same way as someone who comes into it.
yeah, 100%. And I'm so grateful for that going through the experience that I have been. And that is what I want to get out to people if you are going through that is so much more rewarding. And the feeling of coming out of that,
Coming out of what? What do you mean?
coming out of um a hard time, a
Hmm.
hard time of not having a lot of money or
Yeah, yeah.
being
When you've got over the
when you
challenge and
got over the
you've
challenge
got
of
past that, yeah.
not just with money obviously, but a hard challenge of losing a loved one or anything, the the reward that you get from that, it
Hmm.
carries through to the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one of the best lessons that you can learn. So it's just you just have to turn everything into a positive. Otherwise, you just get into a constant loop in your head of negativity.
Hmm.
And catching yourself. You've always I read the book The Secret, and that just changed my whole perspective of the way that I was thinking. It's like you need to catch your brain when you're thinking negative thoughts and um just always be aware of what you're thinking, because if you're down that path of being negative all the time, it's very hard to sort of catch yourself, and it's hard to think positive because it feels like you're lying to yourself.
Mm.
Um, but you kind of are at the time, but it's about lying to yourself over and over again until it becomes the truth. And that's what you're looking for. You obviously want to get out of this situation, and that is a good way to get out.
So I think this ties into almost tricking yourself
Mm,
into thinking certain ways, and you can play kind of mind games with yourself. If you understand how you react to certain situations, and you can be self-aware enough to realize when you're thinking negatively, and when your thinking is non-conducive to organizing things, there's this element of encouraging people and
you are
feeling
capable.
motivation.
You can do it.
But this is the thing: when someone thinks they can't do it, they're probably not even going to try. So this is where it's very useful and beneficial to encourage other people.
And to encourage yourself, even though you feel like you can't do something, just keep saying that you can, even though it doesn't really feel like, even though you're saying it and it's not really, you're
Even if it
lying,
even
you know
if
you're
it
lying to yourself, but
but even if it might not be a lie, but even if it feels like,
yeah,
I'm not actually sure if I can do this, to be certain about something and to feel that's what can give you like a burst of motivation.
mm,
There's So this idea of that a bit of encouragement can allow someone to muster up motivation to take themselves past where they need to get to, that checkpoint that they need to reach. Someone might not think that they can do something, and a small bit of encouragement from someone saying, you know, what you did was great work. Would love to see what you can do next, and that bit of positive feedback and encouragement, it is helpful. It's really helpful because you then think, oh, actually, if other people are saying I can do it, I can probably actually do it. And then once you've got past needing outside validation and you've convinced yourself, you don't need encouragement. You just work on feedback from the world. And this is where you've kind of bypassed needing encouragement. You can now be confident in what you do because I don't know how to word it. You've like, I'm going to come back to that. I'm not quite sure how to word it. But encouraging people, and it's essentially like tricking yourself into it. You
But coming from an out, if you, this ties into the, like, when you're seeing it from an outside perspective as well, not just going through it yourself, but seeing one of your friends go through it. You you need to be on their case of you can do, and being positive towards them, saying positive things, because just keep that repetitive positivity got coming towards them. You can do this, you can do that, and everything's going to be fine. There's nothing to worry
Well,
about.
yeah, it's the same way that discouraging someone is going to make them feel, you know, if I say you can't do that, you can't start a podcast. Who the fuck's going to listen to that? What are you going to talk about? If you
Said
just
that
heard that,
over
if you,
over over again.
I mean, I have heard that, but when people have listened to it and they said,
Have you?
yeah, I've had people say, well, what are you
Oh,
going to talk
really?
about? What the fuck are you?
I have
How
heard.
are you going to do that? And
I've had the one.
I
What are you going to talk about?
yeah, but maybe that's just a valid question.
Mm.
But I've had it in a bit of like a,
Yeah, but in the tone of like, what are you going to
yeah,
talk?
what are you going
Like,
to talk about?
yeah, what have you got to talk about? Like, so many fucking things.
Yeah, got a fucking whole. Here's 2 sheets of it here. Um, the thing of encouraging people and moving past needing encouragement is about being confident. And this is actually what I wanted to say, that when you discourage someone and you kind of knock their confidence, then, for example, if I thought I can't start a podcast, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to do it? There's no way I'm going to do that. I probably wouldn't even try. But if someone encouraged me and that strengthened my confidence to a level where, okay, I can actually do that, and then you feel the motivation. So, oh, actually, I want to do that. This is how I'm going to go about it, and because I feel confident, you're actually going to go for it. So this is where the confidence comes into it. That if you can encourage yourself, you can kind of trick yourself into being confident with it.
Mm.
I feel like a lot of times that they are very linked, and people, they probably doubt themselves, and that's obviously a lack of confidence in what their abilities are, but maybe they don't know their abilities yet. A lot of people, you learn on the job. I didn't know how to start a podcast before I tried to start one.
This is why I'm so grateful for my mum, because literally everything is just, you can. Oh my god, yeah, you can do that. I can see you doing that,
Yeah.
and it's like her eyes light up of whenever I bring it up anything, and it's like, oh my god, yeah, you'd be amazing at that. And it's like, you can do that. You can do anything that you wanted to do. And she's always been like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like so confident. And I know she's listening now, because I, I call her every day. I call her about 5 times a day. And
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah, I'm so fucking grateful for my mum. Because she has been that person for me. Always, just with everything.
We've covered a lot on this.
We have.
It's quicker than I thought it was
Yeah,
going to be.
that's what I'm thinking. It's like half an hour.
I think this thing about being a product of your environment and that people have different access to different resources and that
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this this thing of when you get to this certain age, there's these things about your past that you didn't realize, and you wasn't capable of dealing with it then. So you just blocked it out of your mind, and then suddenly you hit like 21, 22, and it
you realize it had an
a
effect.
massive effect on you, and it's the
Mm.
reason why you've done certain bad things,
Yeah.
and you're
Th-
like, oh God, I done these bad things, and it's probably down to this, and I'm ruining my life because it's down to this, and
So this is a really good topic, and this is something I always end up talking to people about. Is that if you speak to someone for long enough, most people have experienced some big traumatic event, or they've gone through something which was a difficult period. You know, whether they felt depressed. There's some people more extreme than others with that, and people's trauma is in different levels of extremity. So it's not unusual for someone to have experienced that in their life, and I feel also that at different stages of your life you're going to experience trauma in a different way, and it's going to affect you differently. So you know, you might not know how to deal with it when you're younger, so you're going to have to kind of wing it, and it might not be the correct way of dealing with it.
mm,
And that that could be one of these things where later you realize actually that wasn't the right way of dealing with that, and that's actually been quite damaging.
yeah,
You know, that could be that something happened to you when you're younger and you fall out with your parents. How many people do you know like fell out with their mum when they were 16
yeah,
and got kicked out of the house? I
literally,
know so many people that happened to.
just
Like,
trying to
fuck
rebel,
off, you're
yeah.
16 now. Fuck you, mum. Like, because you're at that age, and
You're
you
going through
you be
something tough.
there's some change happening in your brain or your life, your environment, and it changes you, and
You
you'll begin to like clash with people.
and make certain actions which don't correlate with the person that you become,
Yeah,
and
you get
then you're just like, why would I do that? That's not me, and it feels like you're there's like this person who just wasn't you, but you done those things.
that's when I was younger. I was really angry and I was really nasty to people, and I think about it now and I just think I feel so bad for doing just making fun of people or being nasty, and it's just not the type of thing that I do.
Putting yourself in other people's shoes, I think that is you can't really do that when you're a child. It's so hard to what's the word for it?
Empathize.
Empathy. I don't think you gain empathy until you turn 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Like even later, a lot of people don't really gain
You
empathy
well, I mean,
because it's
when
a
you're younger, you don't really think of the consequences to things,
mm, and
and
you don't because you're not an adult and you haven't. It's like that thing of when you get to this point, you realize that those things in your childhood fucked you up. So then you see other kids doing them to that, and you're like, no, stop that! Like
yeah,
you're gonna fuck that child up for the rest of his life. Please don't do that.
yeah,
But you don't realize that when you're a kid, so you do those things, and you don't think of the consequences for your actions. And then, it's almost like on the other side of that as well. When you get to that age, you feel so bad because you're like, I probably fucked that person up for the rest of their life. They're dealing with something now that I've done to them or said to them. I remember there was a girl who I worked with, and she came into work as a new person, and she said, "Oh, oh my god, you're the guy." And I said, What?" She said, "You you in a club said to me, 'Oh my god, your nose is fucking massive, and you've never seen me before.'" And I couldn't remember it. I thought, "But that's not me. I didn't say that." And she was like, "No, it was 100% you.
Fucking
It
hell.
wasn't." And I just felt, I feel bad for it today, and I can't remember it. It's like, what? Why would I say something like that? I, but
Well, and this really affected her. She was
it was
not
like,
happy.
no, but it was clearly something that she felt was like,
She'd held
she,
it.
no, but that was a insecurity of her, and
Hmm.
but I can't, to this day, even when I stood there in front, it was just, but I don't know if I don't really blame myself for that because I can't remember, but it's a horrible thing to think that someone is
It's not
out there
nice, yeah.
who is still probably dealing with something
Mm.
because of something that I said.
Mm. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be things, if you feel insecure about something, and it's a point of kind of, it's a touchy subject for you. I don't know. I've had things in the past that were touchy subjects that I'm more than happy to talk about now. Things things change. You develop. You start to like care less about things like that.
Mm,
But at the same time, it's not very nice. And I mean, if you weren't like picking on her and you weren't trying to say it to be funny to someone else or something like that, then it's different, isn't it? Oh my god, your nose is fucking massive.
like, it just doesn't sound like something I'd say
It doesn't.
either.
It doesn't
It
sound like something you'd say.
um,
She made a mistake. Did you
th-
even recognize her?
I didn't recognize her at all, and it was just out in a it was like out in a club one time, and I must have been absolutely steaming. And but
Fuck's sake.
there is other things as well which you do when you're a kid. You just, like, kind of bully
Mm,
it because you're. But the only thing which kids do is they try to make everyone else or other people look bad to make themselves look better. And I'm sure like we all have done that sometime in our life where we don't want to. We're kids are insecure and they want to be the cool kid or whatever, and they want to be popular, and so you do things that you think will make you popular, and then you end up facing those consequences when you get older. Of, oh my god, I did. Why would I do that?
mm.
Um, yeah,
The thing is, there's no handbook. No one, you know, you can only learn so much by being told. You have to actually go
go
through it
through it. Yeah.
and really experience it. And I feel, I mean, I want to come into this thing of being a product of your environment, and that people have different access to resources, different levels of access, and they have different levels of support. There are people who are our age, 24, 25, and their mum still makes their bed and their mum still makes them dinner. There
And
is
then,
no way that I am anything like that person because I haven't had that done for me for years.
mm,
And it's not something which is like like something great. It's just how it is.
mm,
That hasn't been done for me. I learned to do that when I was younger. So that person is probably doesn't do their own washing. They probably don't pay that much for food. They pay a little bit towards the rent to their mum, probably help their mum out or their parents, whoever it is. But you can't be the same as that person. If you're an independent young adult, you're in a different position to them. And then you've got people who come from different backgrounds, even people who are in the same areas or in the same school or class or just your friends, your peer group, your network of friends, people who you know, have all had different upbringings. So people have really different access to support. When I was 17, I got kicked out of the house. I had to stay with my friend for 8 months. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have had anyone to go to. That was it.
and some people don't.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. I remember when your friend came and stayed with you, I think he was probably staying at his mum's, had an argument, and then staying with you now.
Yeah.
It's happen. It happens to a lot of people, And then there's a lot of people who they go to uni and then they can just ring their parents for some money, or when they. I remember kind of thinking this last year, like all my friends who who I was hanging around with last year, when they were leaving the house they lived in, they're like, "Yeah, we're going home now." Thinking, what? They're like, "Yeah, I'm going back to my parents for a bit." I'm thinking,
Oh yeah, these
you've still
people can
got a
actually
room at
do.
your
Yeah,
parents you can go back to. What?
yeah.
I didn't realize that. I thought you were like,
Here now.
I thought you were here. And they're like, no, gonna go back to Reading for a couple of months.
Mm,
Oh, I'm gonna go back to fucking wherever for a couple of months. And I that was really alien to me because I'd never really hung about with students before, people who were finishing uni or were students in Southampton. That's kind of who most of these people were from other cities, and that was really alien to me that they had somewhere else to go. Because for me, it was like, you're fucking sleeping in the
yeah.
24-hour McDonald's buying
Mm,
coffees all night if you haven't got somewhere to go, mate.
yeah.
And that's the difference. And I feel this is why, even with this podcast, I want to talk to people who are just normal people. Like my friend Jed, his brother, he's someone who I really want to get on and talk to. He's lived in a squat. He's been kicked out since he was a kid. He's fucking lived with random people in random cities he's never been to. His life is unbelievable. He's someone who you look at and you think, fuck me, mate, you've done very well to end up
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
The fact that you're not somewhere else in a much worse position is a miracle.
I love that. I love them.
But this is the type of information you don't have access to when you're younger.
Mm,
Who was telling you
it's all
this?
cotton wool.
No one told me
Mm.
shit. No one said, don't get a credit card. I'd literally never really even heard that
Yeah.
by the time I got a $5,000 credit card.
See, my mum and dad drilled that in me. Never get a fucking credit card. Never.
Did you not?
Never. I've never
Yeah.
had one.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's probably the best thing.
No, that's a fucking good thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like on a lot of podcasts, you'll get, oh, this person's an author. They've just released their 12th book and they're doing a tour of the world.
Yeah.
And they're like a really unrelatable character. And that's a kind of extreme example. But it's never, oh, this is my mate Jed's brother.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. This is his story. And then having a conversation about it. I haven't, there is ones like that. My friend Lewis showed me something like that.
I love this, but we want to do things that we love. So things like that is the things that we want to do. There is actually some guy who does prison stories.
Sean Atwood.
No, yeah,
Is it similar?
he does do that, but there is another guy. I'll find it and we'll put the link in the description to his podcast. He's a guy from London, and he gets like just a friend of friends of people who've been in prison. He's been in prison, the guy who does the podcast himself, but he just talks to normal people from prison and their stories and what they've been through, and it's just getting a real, raw, in-depth look into a system which we are so blind to.
Yeah, totally.
Because nobody talks about it.
When you actually hear what it's like in prison, like one of the guys that works in the shop next door, he's come out of prison. He was in prison for 4 years. One of the guys that lives upstairs, he's been in prison most of his life. And when you talk to them about it, they're like, mate, that's the fucking last place you want to go because you'll just end up in a cycle. It's not, the place is bad, but the cycle of coming in and out and spending the rest of your life in those circles and not being able to break out of it is a whole different aspect to it that I think is kind of overlooked. You know, you become that guy. He's one of the guys that lives nearby. He's a heroin addict. He's been clean for like 2 weeks for the first time in like 30 years. You know, we heard him throwing up out the back, and he has to smoke spice. He has to do it. He has to drink. He has to smoke spice. he's been doing heroin since he was like 13 years old, and then he's been stealing, doing burglaries, and going to different cities and robbing things and all this for years. And he's spent, I think, more than 15 years in prison.
Mm. This is the thing. A lot of these people who are going through that, doing the addicted to these drugs, going through in and out of prison, abuse children, and this is what we're doing to our abused children. We're putting them in prison, and
What do you mean they abuse children?
no,
They
so
are abused
they
children.
are
Well,
abused
yeah, well,
children.
they're not like they're abused in a sense, but you don't mean like
No, I
they're
mean,
necessarily.
I mean physically and mentally abused.
Okay.
That it's something stupid like 90% of people who are in jail were abused as a child in
Really?
some sort of way.
Wow.
And I think there needs to be a massive change in the way that we think of people who are homeless or people who are abuse drugs. Is these people have been through the hardest times, and it's not, we're failing them as a community.
So this guy, Darren, his name is, who's been in jail for a lot of his life, he wants to start something called the National Rehabilitation Fund. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but he basically is a musician. He wants to raise money to help people, to help put people in rehab, for example. Because his experience of it is you get given methadone. I think that's the right word for it. But you get given this drug that they'll give you about 3-4 days supply of it at a time. And then you have to come back and you have to get your prescription again. But if they don't renew your prescription and you can't get it, you have to do heroin. Otherwise you'll just get like extreme violent withdrawal symptoms. And he he's just sweating, he can't talk, he can't think properly, he's vomiting, shivering, hot, cold, like the worst experience. And that's just because he hasn't been given his prescription. So the program for that is obviously problematic. And I've seen him, day in and day out, and spoken to him about it. And it's not easy to come off of hard drugs. There's not the support for it. And the other aspect is that
People don't think of it as a mental illness. They think of it as just like
they're disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Like,
it's an illness.
These people are mentally ill. They're depressed and lonely and stuck in an endless cycle of being upset and sad.
I think it's going to be different for every person, but it's generally negative. Like that type of hard drug use is bound to be negative and stem from something which is negative. I don't know a lot about people being like they're a victim of some abuse, and that's like a correlation between people in jail and that. But people that we've kind of spoken in the past about how when you get older you realize that adults were just winging it as well. They don't actually know.
They were just kids who didn't have a fucking clue, and
they were just working it out.
Yeah.
So this is the thing of that there is a way to go about it, and there is the right way of dealing with things. And a lot of people, I spent every day at school thinking, what the fuck is this about? Yeah. I do not know any content of what I learned at school. All it taught you was shut up or get out of the classroom. If you talk, you're disruptive. if I asked questions, it was you're being disruptive. Just listen, do your exam, and fuck off,
Mm.
so I can get paid. I don't want to have to deal with any rubbish. If you're gonna get in my way, you can get out of the classroom. That was
Just
my experience with school.
you're just a figure, you're just an extra number.
There's no actual uh, empathy or caring. There was with one or two teachers who I had, and there'll be people who I remember and have a lot of respect for. But generally, they don't give a fuck. They just want to get paid. I'm a geography teacher. Here's this information on a spreadsheet or a slideshow about geography. Don't say anything, otherwise you need to fuck off.
Yeah.
People weren't. They didn't actually develop life skills by going to school, and you're kind of left to. But it is kind of similar to how you learn to drive, and then
You're
you
not
get on the road, and that's where you actually learn to drive.
you're not taught anything
But you
in
don't
school.
actually get. I was taught nothing of substance during my entire time in education. Absolutely nothing. And I felt really lost after college because I didn't go to uni. And I was always really interested in learning things. And I remember not really knowing what to look to learn. I didn't really know. There was no syllabus, and I was used to having a syllabus. It's like, okay, this is the first thing you need to learn. This is the second thing you need to learn. And I didn't know what that was. So I don't know. Then I just started like exploring loads of different topics. I got interested in philosophy and Buddhism, Eastern philosophy and history and maths. And I was interested in all of those topics. And I read for like 6 months. I went to the library for like 8 hours a day when I was staying at my mate's, just so I wasn't in the house.
It's a weird thing because I had that as well, is where I came out of school and then a lot of the things that I was learned, or a lot of the subjects, I became more, I liked them more when I got out, or
Mm.
I was more entitled to learn myself. Like, this is an interesting topic, I want to learn that, and I would go out of my way to find out what that was. It's almost like when you're there, it's just the system of it just seems so unappealing. Learning something that's you don't want to learn at the time, sort of choosing that time of I want to learn this now is more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just because you're kind of forced to do it as well.
That's the big thing.
It doesn't feel very appealing, and it wasn't. I had a bit of a weird experience with school. I felt like I understood what I was being taught, but I always felt as if it was uninteresting. If I'm interested in something, I'm really eager to learn more about it, and I will spend the time to do it. But I think if we bring this back into kind of what we've been speaking about, you need to work out what works for you and what are you interested in. And realistically, someone probably isn't going to sit you down and give you the lowdown on what's coming round the corner.
Yeah.
They probably won't. Maybe that's the fun of it. Because when I look at people who are my age and they, live at their mum's, I'm very different to them. They're they're in a completely different place in their life. And you'll just be so different to someone who is like completely like that. They're still like a child. When when I was 17, I had to. It just had to happen.
Yeah.
It was,
You didn't have a choice.
there was no choice.
Yeah.
There was no backup. There was no safety net. It just had to happen. So I found out what worked for me, kind of in a difficult way, and struggled for a lot of that period, and become really experienced and become a lot more confident in myself. I understand myself a lot better, and I've, I don't know. I don't think we wrote this down, but I think you said it, of encouraging yourself and how you speak to yourself you know,
a massive thing.
the way that I would encourage you of saying, yeah, I think you can do that, you know, do your research and learn more and everything like that. That's kind of how you need to deal with yourself. But in times where you're facing difficulty and you might be angry, and like you're saying about when you're going into a negative, almost spiral, catch it and turn it around and encourage yourself and use a kind tone when you talk to yourself in your head.
And say I love you. Like
It's quite funny, yeah. It's a kind of, it's the only way you can describe it, but I've become good friends with the voice in my head.
literally.
over a period
I
of
love
time.
me. Like I just do.
Yeah.
But that comes with doing everything that you know you should do.
Like what?
Like everything that you did before that you knew was holding you back, stopping doing all of those things. That's just the biggest. That's the biggest thing for me. I love me because I'm not holding myself back anymore from achieving.
What was holding you back?
Well, alcohol and drinking and drugs, and but we've touched on that subject, but yeah, just finding those things that, but you already know those things that are holding you back, but you still carry on doing them anyway. But yeah, I think
You get stuck in a rut though, and you build habits, and if you don't catch them and nip them in the bud, it becomes a problem. This has actually been really nice.
I really fucking enjoyed this conversation.
I love little conversations like this.
It felt smooth. It was yeah.
I didn't. I mean, we said like a couple of times, but I don't think it was anywhere near as bad as what we've been doing. Fucking hell.
The last time
you couldn't even listen to it.
Yeah, you know, we're not going to be putting that one out, guys.
Yeah, that one's not coming out. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. I don't know if the bit at the end was kind of summarized. It kind of tied in, but we didn't have notes on the last little bit where we kind of talked about prison. But that guy I want to bring him in here, but where he's a burglar, I don't want to bring him in the fucking flat. Because he'd be like, right, if I come through that window, I've only got to get through a couple of doors and I'll get all that podcast shit. But he would be a really good person.
He would, yeah.
Speaking to someone who's come off of heroin, not many people fucking do it. Once they start, that's it. But
we've got a few people who we can get on with who've gone through troubled lives.
But all of these topics are going to be. We've got the other 2 mics.
We're ready to go. When
we're talking with other people, we're going to be able to have amazing conversations.
I can't wait for it.
Should we wrap that up there?
Yeah, wrap it up. But just want to say thank you guys so much for all your messages. It's like I wasn't expecting it. It's really been overwhelming for me of people who really did actually want to listen, because I didn't think that anyone who I knew would actually want to listen.
The thing that I really liked was it was someone that came here the other day. They were, it was my housemate's mate. He came round and he's like, mate, what you were saying, I think in our first one, the growing up and moving out episode, he just said, it's exactly what I'm going through at the moment. He's like, what I was thinking about, everything that in my head, like all of those things have been going through my head of what you were talking about. And it was nice to know that I wasn't alone. So there's things like that. They're really positive messages. And I feel like we've had, I think that I've heard a lot more messages than I thought I would have.
Yeah.
Like just from people that have spoken to you as well and stuff I've heard from other people. I was expecting like 1 or 2 people to say, oh yeah, it was all right, it's good.
And for someone to actually take something from it is just...
Yeah, that's really good. That
just makes me want to do this so much more.
And so many other people of my friends have said, if you ever want a guest to come on and just ramble on about something, let me know.
Yeah.
So I've got so many people that are interested in talking with us and people who are interested to hear more from us. So it's generally really positive feedback.
Mm,
And I hope that this time we spoke a lot clearer. That was something which I wanted to work on a bit.
yeah,
But all of it's going to just improve over time.
that's it. We're just a work in progress, and we knew that from the start. And it was kind of um, that's why it's like it's such a surprise because I thought nobody would really want to listen till like the 50th, 100th
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So for people to be actually listening now, it's
People don't really care.
yeah,
They don't care that it's a bit, oh, the first
bit
one's in that
ropey.
video, it's a
Mm,
bit janky. The sound was a bit shit on the first ones. We didn't realize we had these
yeah,
or I didn't. And you know, you learn. It's work in progress. And this is, I think, the best thing we've done with this is just get going with it.
yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, this is gonna be the third episode, and the next one will be coming out the following Wednesday. So thank you very much if you made it this far.
Thank you very much, and Sam, see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Boom.